By noon, the sun was bright enough to make every lie look clean, but when Soraya Vale stood outside my repair shop with a bruised wrist hidden under a cream-colored sleeve and whispered that she needed me to run away with her before her husband found out, the whole day suddenly felt darker than midnight. I had not seen Soraya in almost 3 years, not since her younger sister, Malin, broke off our engagement 2 weeks before the wedding and left me standing in a half-painted apartment full of unopened dishes and broken promises. Back then, Soraya had been the quiet married sister who always stood in the background at family dinners, smiling politely, speaking softly, carrying everyone's pain like it belonged to her. She was older than Malin, calmer, more graceful, and married to a man named Victor Harlan, a wealthy contractor with polished shoes, heavy watches, and a way of looking at people as if he already owned the room they were standing in. I remembered thinking Soraya's smile never reached her eyes. That afternoon, when she appeared in front of my shop with sunlight shining over the street and fear trembling in her voice, I finally understood why. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the kind of courage it takes to help someone when the whole world tells you not to get involved, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Diaries. Sometimes one story can remind someone that they are not alone. My name is Kairo Dostan, and by the time Soraya came back into my life, I had built a quiet routine out of the ruins Malin left behind. I fixed old radios, broken lamps, ceiling fans, coffee machines, anything people brought through my blue-painted door. My shop sat on the corner of Belmere Avenue, where the bakery smelled like cinnamon by 10 in the morning and schoolchildren passed in yellow uniforms just after lunch. It was a peaceful place, the kind of place where problems usually came with loose wires and missing screws, not trembling women begging for help. Soraya stood near the counter, gripping the strap of a small gray bag, her face pale under the bright daylight. She said she had nowhere else to go, and though every wounded part of me wanted to ask why she had come to me after all these years, I saw the mark near her wrist and swallowed the question. She did not ask me to love her. She did not ask me to forgive her family. She only asked me to drive her to the old coastal bus station before Victor realized she had taken her documents from the safe. She spoke quickly, carefully, as if every word had to escape before fear dragged it back inside her chest. For 7 years, she said, her marriage had been a beautiful cage. Victor chose her clothes, checked her phone, controlled her money, smiled in public, and punished her in private with silence, threats, and hands that always left marks where sleeves could hide them. That morning, during breakfast under a golden chandelier, he had told her she was lucky anyone had married her. Something inside her, something quiet but still alive, had finally refused to bow. While he left for a business meeting, she packed her papers, some cash, and a photograph of her late mother, then walked out into daylight with no plan except my name written on the back of an old receipt. I wanted to say no. Not because I did not care, but because helping Soraya meant stepping back into a family that had once treated my heart like something disposable. Malin had ended our engagement with a text message, then disappeared into a new life before I could even ask what I had done wrong. Her parents never called. Soraya never explained. For years, I convinced myself they were all the same, beautiful people with soft voices and sharp exits. But the woman standing in front of me was not asking for comfort from the past. She was asking for safety in the present. Outside, the sun fell warm across the pavement, and the world carried on as if ordinary afternoons could not become turning points. I closed the shop early for the first time in months. We left in my old green pickup just after 1. Soraya sat beside me with both hands folded around her bag, staring out the window as the city thinned into long roads, low houses, and fields bright under the afternoon sun. She flinched every time my phone buzzed. She turned once when a black SUV appeared behind us, then breathed again when it passed. I tried to keep the conversation simple, grounding her in small things. I told her the bus station still had terrible coffee. I told her the coast road was faster if the bridge traffic was light. She almost smiled at that, but the smile broke before it formed. Then she said Malin had not left me because she stopped loving me. She left because Victor had discovered something about their father's debts and used it to pressure the family. He wanted Malin married into money, not into my uncertain life above a repair shop. Soraya said she had tried to warn me once, but Victor found out and locked her phone away for 2 weeks. The road blurred in front of me. For 3 years, I had carried humiliation like a stone in my chest, thinking I had simply not been enough. Now Soraya was telling me the truth had been uglier than heartbreak. I did not know whether to feel relieved, angry, or devastated all over again. She watched my face and apologized, not with excuses, but with the kind of shame that comes from surviving something and still blaming yourself for everyone it hurt. In that moment, I realized Soraya had not been silent because she was cruel. She had been silent because fear had trained her to disappear inside her own life. We were 20 minutes from the coastal station when Victor called my phone. I do not know how he got the number. Maybe from Malin years ago, maybe from some contact list Soraya had forgotten, maybe from the kind of money that makes privacy feel like a locked door made of paper. I let it ring until it stopped. Then a message arrived. It said he knew Soraya was with me, and if I did not bring his wife back before sunset, he would make sure I lost my shop, my home, and whatever was left of my reputation. A second message followed with a photograph of my storefront taken from across the street. My hands tightened on the wheel. Soraya saw my face and began to shake. She said he always did this, always made people feel trapped before he even touched them. I pulled into a crowded roadside market instead of continuing straight. Daylight was everywhere, loud and bright, spilling across fruit stalls, flower buckets, and families buying lunch. I parked where people could see us. Soraya looked confused, but I told her fear works best in empty places. Then I called a woman named Inspector Navarra Sol, someone who had once been my customer after I repaired her father's old record player. I did not know whether she would help, but I knew she was honest. I told her a woman was fleeing an abusive husband, that threats had already begun, and that we needed guidance before things became dangerous. Navarra did not waste time. She told us not to go to the bus station, because if Victor was tracking Soraya's phone or bank card, he might already be waiting there. She directed us to a community legal center near the courthouse, open until 4, where a domestic safety advocate could help Soraya file an emergency protection request. For the first time that day, Soraya cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, but silently, like her body had found one safe inch of air and did not know what to do with it. I bought her a bottle of water from the market and watched her hold it with both hands. She looked smaller than I remembered, not weak, but exhausted from years of pretending to be fine. The drive to the legal center felt endless, even under the clear afternoon sky. Every red light felt like a trap. Every dark vehicle looked like Victor. At one intersection, Soraya ducked when a horn sounded nearby, and something inside me broke with quiet anger. Nobody should have to fear the sound of the world moving around them. At the legal center, a kind advocate named Hester Rowe listened to Soraya without rushing her. The room had pale walls, plastic chairs, and sunlight coming through dusty blinds. It was not cinematic or grand. It was just a small office where someone finally believed her. Soraya showed the messages, the bruises, the documents, the hidden recordings she had saved over months. Her hands shook as she placed everything on the table. Hester explained her options, called Inspector Navarra, and helped arrange a safe shelter placement outside the city. I sat near the door, not as a hero, not as a rescuer, but as a witness. That was all Soraya needed from me then, someone who would not look away. Victor arrived at 3:37 in the afternoon. I remember the exact time because the clock above the reception desk clicked loudly as the front door opened. He walked in wearing a charcoal suit and a smile meant for strangers. In daylight, he looked respectable, which somehow made him more frightening. He greeted the receptionist calmly, then looked straight at me. His eyes did not shout. They measured. He said Soraya was emotionally unstable, that she had misunderstood a private argument, that I was interfering in a marriage I knew nothing about. Then he stepped closer and lowered his voice just enough for me to hear that men like me should not reach for women who belong to other men. Before I could answer, Soraya came out of the meeting room. She stood behind Hester at first, pale but upright. Victor's expression changed for half a second, the mask slipping into rage before he pulled it back into concern. He told her to come home. He said everyone was worried. He said she was embarrassing herself. The old Soraya might have lowered her eyes. The old Soraya might have apologized for bleeding. But this Soraya, shaking in a sunlit hallway with legal papers in her hand, said she was not going home with him. Her voice was thin, but it did not break. Victor laughed softly, and that laugh carried years of control inside it. He reminded her that no one would believe her, that her family would deny everything, that Malin had already learned what happened when people crossed him. At the sound of her sister's name, Soraya flinched, but then she looked at me, and I saw something change. She was not only escaping for herself anymore. She was escaping for every version of herself that had been silenced, and maybe for Malin too. Inspector Navarra arrived before Victor could leave. The threats on my phone, the photograph of my shop, Soraya's evidence, and his appearance at the legal center all became part of the record. Victor's confidence did not vanish, but it cracked. He still tried to speak like the most powerful person in the building, yet for the first time, people were writing down his words instead of fearing them. Soraya watched him from across the room, tears on her cheeks, and I knew courage did not always look like someone standing tall. Sometimes courage looked like a trembling woman refusing to take one step backward. By late afternoon, the emergency order process had begun, and Soraya was placed in a safe location arranged by the advocate. I was not allowed to know the address, and that was right. Before she left, she stood beside my pickup in the courthouse parking lot, sunlight turning the windows gold behind her. She thanked me, but I told her she had saved herself. I had only opened a door when she knocked. She asked if I hated Malin. I looked across the busy street, at people carrying folders and coffee cups and ordinary burdens, and I told the truth. I had hated the silence, not the person. Pain had made me imagine villains where there were wounded people. That did not erase what happened, but it changed how I carried it. 2 weeks later, I received a letter with no return address. It was from Soraya. She wrote that she had filed for divorce, that Victor's threats were being investigated, and that Malin had finally contacted her after years of distance. The sisters were speaking again, carefully, painfully, but honestly. Soraya wrote that freedom did not feel like happiness at first. It felt like standing outside in bright daylight after years indoors, blinking because even the sun hurt. But every morning, it hurt a little less. Near the end of that letter, she wrote something I still keep folded inside the drawer of my shop counter. She wrote that people think escape begins when you run, but sometimes it begins when one person believes you before you have enough strength to believe yourself. I read that line 3 times, then sat quietly while afternoon customers passed outside my window. My shop was still there. My life was still imperfect. My heart was still healing. But something in me had softened. I had spent years thinking second chances meant getting back what you lost. Soraya taught me that sometimes a second chance means becoming someone who does not let pain make him cruel. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because your support helps stories like this reach people who may be silently praying for courage, kindness, or a reason to keep going. Special request, please comment I believe survivors deserve peace if you believe no one should ever be trapped in a life where love is used as a weapon. Months later, on a bright Sunday morning, a postcard arrived from a small coastal town. There was no dramatic message, no promise of a perfect future, only a few simple words from Soraya saying she had found work at a library, rented a little room above a florist, and could finally sleep with the window open. I stood outside my shop under the clear daytime sky, listening to the city wake around me, and for the first time in years, I did not think about what Malin took from me or what Victor tried to destroy. I thought about a woman walking freely beside the sea, carrying her own name back into the world. And I understood that not every rescue looks like romance, not every ending needs a wedding, and not every broken road leads back to the person who broke you. Sometimes the most beautiful ending is simply this: someone who was once afraid learns to live without fear, and someone who was once bitter learns that kindness can still be stronger than pain.